Hi guys, welcome back to Gardening with Creations by DX & Co. Today we're going to discuss winter sowing. It is a practice that is ever growing in popularity these days, and I wanted to show you some tips and techniques on it. So let's get started. Alright, so with winter sowing, as I mentioned, it's becoming more and more popular. What does it mean to winter sow? Usually that means that somebody is taking a container. Most commonly used is like a milk jug, a plastic milk jug. Happen to have something similar here. This is actually a water jug, but milk jug just like this with a handle, so on and so forth. And that is what is commonly used when it comes to winter sowing. And I'll go through how you would utilize that one. You know, for years, I've actually had a reservation to winter sowing because I don't actually drink milk in containers like that, as my kids had a dairy allergy growing up. So we don't actually drink milk any longer out of like a whole milk, 2% milk, standard milk jug just like that. So it's actually been difficult for me to get my hands on something like that to do even a video for winter sowing. I thought today I would go through some other potential options that you may have in your home, just like I have in my home, that would be something we could try out together. And what I'll do is I'll actually plant some seeds in here in these different containers. That's kind of test A, will the different containers work, right? And then for me, test B is gonna be, I'm gonna try to grow those same seeds inside in my actual indoor greenhouse and see which one is better. Have you guys ever seen volunteer tomatoes before? A volunteer tomato is where last year's tomatoes basically fall on the ground, and those seeds actually over the winter, for example, get down into the soil and then end up germinating, and they pop up the next year all on their own. So they're called volunteer tomatoes. So with a volunteer tomato, it's kind of the same principle. If you planted tomato seeds inside of a winter sowed container, a container like that, you would then have a potential for tomato seeds to germinate when they're ready. So a lot of people use winter sowing method because they believe that means that seeds are going to come up when they're supposed to come up, rather than relying on us to plant them indoors and see them come up eventually. So you wouldn't want to go out to your garden and just go dig up in the hard soil in the middle of winter and plant a bunch of seeds and trying to prepare for next year. With the winter sowing, two different things take place. A, you're putting them in a good soil to start, like a potting soil, a good potting mix. And that's what we're going to be using as a potting mix. And B, you're giving a greenhouse effect with the actual containers, the clear containers. You're allowing the cold air to hit it, but at the same time, you're allowing the heat to transfer through this container, warm up the soil that's inside, and actually give it that bit of a greenhouse effect during the daytime. And so that gets a better germination rate for you, rather than a direct sow in the spring where, you know, the ground could still be cold and it takes a little bit longer for that germination. So it's easy to then transplant that into the ground right from that container. So that's one of the reasons why winter sowing is a big benefit. Let me show you some of the options that I'm talking about today as far as containers. So one, just a standard little plastic water bottle. Note, the one thing that makes sense for winter sowing, I think you guys can all agree, is that it's a clear plastic container that has a vent. So that's one thing you're looking for, is A, a clear container, and B, one that you can have a vent for a lid. So I thought, okay, we drink a lot of these water bottles. We do a lot of reusable water bottles, but we also have these particular water bottles that we keep by our bedside. And so I thought this would be a good one to practice. Maybe a single seed in. You couldn't do multiple plants with this one, but maybe a single, maybe 2, 3 seeds or something like that starting out in there would be great. Separating later. I eat a lot of peanut butter pretzels, and I get these at Sam's Club. We have several of these particular containers laying around, and I thought this would be a really cool one. Fill it up about halfway. If nothing else, these will make great planting containers, drill some holes for drainage, so on and so forth later. But for now, I thought this would make a great container to try, and I've got 3 or 4 of these different ones. Now note, this one is a much larger opening, so that may not work out. It may actually be too cold and too much moisture and humidity. So this will be an interesting test for us. Next, we've got a simply orange juice container. So I think this would work with just about any clear orange juice container that you have here. And note, that's a lot smaller opening, but very wide at the base here. So I think, you know, cutting that with a little hinge. I have some of the clamshell style clear plastic containers that I wanted to use as well. Well, something like this. What I mean by clamshell is it has a, you know, kind of a hinged opening here. This one is actually a blackberry container here. I have used something similar in the past. These work really well. These ones already have pre-venting on them, so you wouldn't have to like have the larger opening like these other ones. So I just wanted to show you guys what I'm going to be using, the different container styles, because one, I wanted to kind of give you guys some options. I think some of you may be out there kind of scared like I was, right? Saying, I can't get my hands on this, so I can't winter sow, right? And that's not ideal. So I wanted to try some different options of winter sowing and see which ones are going to work out the best for us, so that I can try it and maybe you guys can replicate it at home. Some of the different things that are great for winter sowing. If you guys are very big into flowers or annuals or perennials for your yard, if you're interested in buying some flowers but you just don't know how to start them, read the back of the seed packet. Some of them actually require to be a cold start, meaning they need to be cold or frozen before they can actually be warmed and then germinate, right? So it is a perfect situation for winter sowing. Some other crops that you could try with winter sowing, you can definitely do your leafy greens, your lettuces, so on and so forth, though your cold hardy vegetables. They would do great in this type of conditions, but really I wouldn't do those. They're really unnecessary. Those you can direct sow in the spring. You can direct sow those in kind of a hothouse or things like that. That would be a better example of where you could do something like that. But as I said, this is going to be more of a trial and error. So we're going to try a couple of different things. I will look at my seed selection, see what makes sense. I've already started all of my tomatoes inside already. I don't think I'm going to put tomatoes in any of these, but there are a bunch of flower varieties that I bought that I've never grown before. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you those before I plant them. We'll plant them in each of these different containers, and then we will also plant them inside and put them in the indoor greenhouse so we can see which one germinates better, which one has a better success rate overall, how long they take to grow, so on and so forth, and see, is winter sowing really worth it? Okay, so let's talk about materials that you're going to need for this project. So duct tape or some sort of adhesive that's going to hold your containers together that won't just peel off from moisture. You're going to need a good potting soil mix, because potting soil is what you want to use because it has the ability to retain moisture a lot better, and you don't want to be going out there to water them every single day. So a seed starting mix would not be a good mix for this type of project. Obviously you're going to need some sort of a container, most commonly used, right? So you're going to need some sort of cutting tool to prepare your containers. So I like to use a knife. An X-Acto knife would be great if you have it, or scissors if you have nothing else, right? And then you're going to need something to either poke holes in the bottom for drainage. So you can use that with your knife if you want to do it. You could do it with a drill bit and drill through that, or if you have like a hot iron or something, you can just poke some holes in there, whichever is easiest for you. And then of course a marker. Garden markers work the best because they don't wash off with the soil, but you're going to want to mark what you're actually growing, right? And of course, your seeds. What are you going to grow? So those are the materials that I'm going to be using for today. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is prepare all of our containers. We don't want to leave these labels on here because we do want to let as much light in as possible. So however you have to do it, if you can, try to peel off or get off the labels best that you can. It's not really going to hurt anything to leave them on, but again, we want to try to give the opportunity to let as much light in as possible on these containers. Okay? Once you've got your labels off of all the different containers that you're going to use, then you want to poke your holes on the bottom. So again, you can use a hot iron or a drill bit, whatever you find. We're just looking to do a couple of drainage holes. I'm just going for kind of the four-corner method. I'm not trying to let soil leak out or anything like that. So I've just cut kind of right in the little four corners, letting some opportunity for drainage for this, okay? And then next step, okay? So go ahead and take this cap off. We no longer need it, all right? You can go ahead and recycle those appropriately. Now, what we're looking to do is cut this container. Now, the reason that milk jugs are so popular is because people like to make a hinge out of the handle, so that way they can still kind of carry it. It also gives you kind of a guideline of where you want your soil level. So with this, you're going to want your soil level right up to about where this handle is. So in doing such, we're going to cut all the way around this jug, but we're not going to cut where the handle is. So let me show you really quick. Let me do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut with my knife. You can draw a line if that's easier for you and just kind of follow your line. Gets a little more difficult in the back. Remember, you need to be able to run your tape around this when you're finished. So now I've got that cut, kind of went on an angle. That's okay, doesn't need to be perfect. But what that allows me to do is just kind of fold that back on itself, and now I've created like a hinge. So for all of our containers, whether it be this, whether it be our orange juice container, we're going to do the same thing with that, only I'll use like the back side as its hinge and just cut the three sides. For all of our containers, we're going to be creating that opening if they don't already have one. So for example, we're going to be using something like this, which is just a berry container. It comes from the grocery store. It's already got the holes in it. We don't need to do anything with it. It's got vent holes on the top. Really, this is probably the easiest one because we're just going to put soil in it, plant our seeds, and call it good. But this already has a hinge, so you're creating the same concept with this one. All right, now notice the difference in transparency. This particular one has a lot more air holes and is a lot clearer than this one. So which one do you think is going to let more light through? Which one do you think will grow better crop? I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm thinking the milk container will do better than this one because it's going to let a lot more cold air in. But we'll see. So that's how you would prepare that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fill this up. Now that we've got our holes in the bottom, we've got our hinge made, got our top off. We're going to fill this with pre-moistened potting soil. That's right. We want to make sure that our potting soil is pre-moistened. Not like sopping wet. It's got to be like just wet enough so that way when you clump it, it kind of holds together. I'm going to go ahead and prepare the rest of my containers here, and then we will get started with our planting. I'll show you what I'm planting and how we do it. So we're preparing 3 more containers. I'm just waiting for the soil to drain out a little bit. I've already got some containers prepped here. So we've got the containers that I've chosen to try out. This is a cupcake container. I had some cupcakes in it. I think that'll do well. I've germinated some green beans in the past with something like that, and they worked out very well. I've got the water bottle. You can see it's hinged and already filled with that pre-moistened soil. Now all of these I've put drain holes in them, I've cut, right? The Simply orange juice container, which has a really nice thick plastic on it. I thought that was pretty, it was difficult to cut, but it was nice, the durability on it overall. This is blackberry container, so it had blackberries in it, and so we'll put some seeds in there to get them sprouted. And then of course we've chosen the standard or common, the milk jug container, right? So this is the milk jug container. Now I'm also going to attempt to do, as I mentioned before, the pretzel container that I had. So we're going to try that one out. Got that all prepped. I just need to get some soil in it. And I'm going to try a lunch meat container, almost like a Tupperware. Now this one doesn't have, I don't want to leave it open like this, so I poked a couple of air holes in the top as well as some drainage holes in the bottom. So we will use this more of a greenhouse effect like that. It'll be interesting with the red dome on it to see if it'll still germinate some seeds for us there. So, and then lastly, I've got a kitty litter container, one that I've used for making a DIY watering can in the past, so I'll show you that one too. That's the one where I'm kind of mixing my soil in right now, getting it wet, so to fill up the rest of these containers. But that will be a good mix for us. So what I want to show you while that's kind of draining out is the seeds I've chosen to go with. So I'm going to plant out some poppies. Now poppies are sown several weeks before the frost, and you sprinkle them usually over top of the prepared soil. And so this is something that basically poppies like to get to be cold before they germinate. So I think these will do pretty well. I'm going to try those ones out, I think, in the actual cupcake container. Now I did say I wanted to try some vegetables as well, so I'm going to try out these mixed bell peppers. I'm already growing 2 inside right now, so I'm not overly concerned if these actually work out. Peppers need a lot of heat, so if they do work, it's probably going to be long term. This will probably be June before these sprout, even though right now it's just the 1st of March. I'm going to try some lavender. So lavender seeds are just in general hard to sprout in my opinion. I've got 2 growing inside right now that I just sprouted, but I'm going to give this a try because I really like lavender and I think it'll make a nice touch around the yard. And I purchased some morning glory seeds. Now I was just as an experiment, so with these in particular, they are, you're supposed to start them indoor, or if you're going to plant them directly outdoors, you want to do it after the frost. So I'm going to go ahead and plant these out in here too, just see how they do. So we'll try some morning glories. Again, everything that I'm doing outside, I'm also doing inside just to see the difference. Some zinnias, I've got 2 different variety here of zinnia. I've got the early bird and the lilliput mix. So I'm going to try both of those ones for some winter sowing. Again, these ones are not, needing to be dormant. Stratification period is what they call it. They don't need to be in that stratification period, but we're going to try it anyways. We're going to do some delphinium. I know I'm butchering the pronouncement of that. I've got these already sprouting inside, so that's cool. I've also got some dinosaur kale sprouting inside. I know that's upside down, but that's because the seed packet opens from the bottom on these. So I've got some dinosaur kale. That one is definitely not one that is required for winter sowing whatsoever. It can be direct sown in the early spring, if you will, because it's cold tolerant. But again, I've got some of that sprouting inside. Some bok choy, again, I've got it open from the bottom. So I've got some bok choy for the bearded dragon, and so we're going to try that as well. What I'm really excited to try is I've got 2 different varieties of cucumber here, the Birkby Pickler and also the Straight 8. Now I'm excited to try these ones because I've never tried either one of these varieties, but transplanting cucumbers, you want to do it while they're still smaller. So about 4 weeks before my frost date is when I would do that, but I'm going to try them outside just to see if they come up on their own. I'm going to do some peas because they are very cold tolerant and we should be able to get those sprouted. And then I want to try some asparagus because I've got some asparagus seeds and I really want to get those going. I'm going to direct sow these. I'm not going to start these inside. So I'm going to direct sow these this year. So I thought it'd be worth a try to see if they would pop up in the winter sowing method. So we'll give it a try. So that's what we're going to try out this year. And so let's get the rest of this soil in here and then we'll start planting. Got all of our soil prepped and it's all in these containers. Everything is pre-moistened. It's potting soil as we talked about. So now on to actually planting. So I've gone ahead and kind of started dividing up the seeds in which container that I would like them. And so we're going to actually go ahead and start with this large container over here, a little bit out of the camera shot there. So I'm going to move it in here. I'm going to start with our large former cat litter container. Now I've chosen, since it's a big container, I think it would do well for some flowers, so I've chosen the zinnias there. See if I can get them in the shot, the two different varieties. Those are the ones that I'm going to just mix them both in here because I don't really mind which variety, you know, pops up, right? So I haven't even opened these ones yet. Do need to get some started inside. And so I'm just gonna kind of, they say to sow at about a 1/4 inch depth. Just gonna kind of sprinkle some of these out in my hand. These are an interesting seed. They're almost like a sunflower seed, a bit smaller. I don't know if I'll ever get that in focus, but it's kind of too difficult to get in focus there, apologize. We've got our seeds all in there. Now it's just a matter of tamping them down. I did press all this soil down to begin with, kind of get all the air holes out, just like I would when I'm doing like a seed starting, whether it be with a seed starting mix or a potting soil in particular. Kind of pressing down that soil into these containers, making sure that you're kind of getting the air out of there, having a good contact with your seeds themselves. So now that we've done that, the next step here is on our hinge, just kind of close that container back up and then take your duct tape. And what you're looking to do is simple. You're going to take your duct tape, and a lot of people like to write on the duct tape first before you actually do anything. Just write, okay, this is the zinnia. So this is a simple, quick, write it right on there for you. Like I said, if you have a garden marker, those are ideal. But what you're looking to do is just kind of tape the sides back together. So that way later on you can cut them back open and you can harvest. You've got the air hole on the back. Sorry, excuse me. Got the air hole on the top, and you've got the drainage holes on the bottom. Just give it a good taping all around. All you're looking to do is kind of hold it together, keeping it from falling over, critters getting in there, digging up your seeds, that sort of thing. And that's it. Now I can actually hold this by the handle because it's taped, right? So I'm ready to put this one outside. It's labeled. I know what it is that's growing in here. It's already moistened. It's good to go. All right, so I've got a number of other ones here that I need to get planted out. So let me get that done and we'll move on. So now that we've got everything planted, ready to go outside, there's some things to remember. This soil absolutely will freeze. It's expected. That's why they call it winter sowing. This will freeze and it'll start to de-thaw when it's needed. So that's what that stratification period is all about. This is obviously best for those seeds that really require that stratification period. So we purposely tried a few seeds this time that don't typically require a stratification period. They should still work. Nature should allow these seeds to come up when they're supposed to. Now, freezing those seeds may be an issue, or they may start sprouting on a warm day and then die because they get too cold, but we'll see. That's why they call it an experiment. We're trying a bunch of different containers to see which ones kind of work best for us, so we'll definitely follow up with that as well. Now, another thing when it comes to winter sowing is your soil will dry out, and it is up to you to check that. Now, right now, this is damp soil. That's on purpose, but you want to be checking this once a week, once every 2 weeks, just kind of looking at the soil, seeing if it is dried out, seeing if you need to add some water to it. Now, you don't want to overwater, add a ton of water to it, but you would want to add a little bit of water to it. So you do need to put these in a place where you're willing to go to check them, right? So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys learned something. I will do a follow-up, of course, on this, making sure that I let you guys know which containers seem to work the best for us. And we'll just kind of circle back and see if winter sowing is really worth it, or direct sowing in the springtime is better for you, or starting your seeds indoor. That's what I'm kind of testing here for us, and we'll see how that goes. As always, guys, I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you guys are staying safe and enjoying your gardens.